Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wrestling podcast. We are available on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Google Podcast. So, without further ado, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall. And today's topic: the King of the Ring 1993 review.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
Nice to meet you, sir.
And Craig. Yo. Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, King of the Ring 93. Hit us up on Instagram at OWP2019. Click on Linktree. You could find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. Guys, we've already done a little bit of King of the Ring. Why are we talking about 93 today?
This, first of all, it's a celebration of mullets, as we talked about off the air.
We did.
Which is super notable.
It's in my notes.
So funny.
Yeah.
And then 1993 was the year of mullets, I have a feeling. And it has to be.
Had to be.
I won't accept any other answer.
I had one in 93, God damn it.
There it is. And then also 1993 was the very first King of the Ring that was on the paper, became a pay-per-view. So it became the number 5 pay-per-view. So it became the top 5, the big 5 in WWE pay-per-views. Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and now King of the Ring in 1993. And so I thought we should review it match by match and give it a, the good old thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, or thumbs down. And at the end, we'll give the whole pay-per-view a thumbs up.
For some reason, we always agree with Craig, with Jessers on the heels tactics. Craig, what do you got to say about it?
This King of the Ring, as long as with being the first pay-per-view one, has kind of a lot going on in the background of it. You've got Hogan's last pay-per-view before he jumped ship. You've got kind of the ascendance and the trying to make Bret Hart happy by wrestling a good, 40 minutes, 45 minutes in this event. You've got, was this Luger's first pay-per-view in the Narcissist?
Second.
WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, second
Oh,
wrestling.
that's right. He was around. But you get to see him in that long form mirror. There's a lot to this.
But
this pay-per-view.
but to debut WrestleMania 9 any WrestleMania to just debut has to be tough, yeah?
Oh yeah, Narcissist will forever. We'll probably talk about this later. But when he was first introduced and Bobby Heenan was slobbering all over him on commentary, that stayed with us for years. Where it's like, oh, Lex, take it off, stop teasing us, Lex. Like Bobby, it was so funny. Bobby Heenan sold that like $1 million.
Bobby Heenan was an absolute racist to us on the entire card. I'm sure. I think I have notes explaining that in several sessions. But yeah. Anywho,
welcome to the heartland of America as the World Wrestling Federation presents the first ever King of the Ring.
Should we jump in, Jess?
Sure.
Are you ready to just? I have the card like down, pound per pound, but I'll lead us into an intro and you can talk about the first match. But the first set of the King of the Ring quarterfinal matches were 15 minutes, and I love this because the announcers who happened to be, like we said, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Macho Man, and who is it?
Who are the commentators? Jim Ross.
Yeah, Jim Ross, who, by the way, made some of these matches, if not all these matches, way better than they were just because of his ability to call the shots step by step. But you did have Savage, you did have Heenan, you did have Ross commentating throughout this entire setup. And Ross did a fantastic job, way better than what he's doing now, by the way. People love him, but it's just not the same. He was so good at his craft at this point. He was on top of his game. You want to take us into the first match, Jess?
So also too, going into this, being the first pay-per-view,
Sure.
they really the focus was the tournament and who is going to become king of the ring.
It was.
So before, Raw was only about 5 months old at this point. It had been on the air for only 5 months. So it's crazy the way they were trying to incorporate Raw. They actually had pre-qualifying matches before this. So Bret Hart was allowed to come into this tournament without wrestling a qualifying match because of the controversy from WrestleMania 9. So they allowed him, President Jack Tunney allowed him to come in without having to prove himself because everybody's like, Bret got screwed. He should just automatically get in the tournament. Lex Luger defeated Bob Backlund on Wrestling Challenge by count out. Razor Ramon defeated Tito Santana on WWF Superstars a week after that.
Tito never gets a break.
He doesn't. Well, he won it, as we talked about in our history. He won 1 year on the house show.
It's true.
So he's immortalized, Dave. Hacksaw Jim Duggan defeated Papa Shango on Wrestling Challenge to qualify for the tournament. Bam Bam Bigelow defeated Typhoon on Monday Night Raw to qualify.
Wow.
Tatanka defeated the Giant Gonzalez by disqualification when Giant Gonzalez didn't want to stop choking him, which is a common problem. So Tatanka gets into the problem. Or Tatanka gets into the tournament. Mr. Perfect, this was interesting, actually. Mr. Perfect and Doink the Clown wrestled 3 times to determine a winner. The first match went to a draw. The second match went to a draw. One was on Superstars, the other Wrestling Challenge. Then they had a third match on Monday Night Raw where Mr. Perfect would end up defeating Doink to advance to the tournament. So I thought that was a little interesting. And then Mr. Hughes would defeat Kamala on Wrestling Challenge to grab the last position in the tournament. So that's how they kind of set it up.
Kamala.
Goddamn Kamala.
Wow.
Just missed it. So yeah. So basically everything coming into this was Bret Hart won the title out of nowhere at the end of 92 by defeating Flair. Then Vince starts shoving Bret down our throat. He's the most fightingest WWF champion of all time. He's beaten people like Virgil and other people, legitly Skinner and shit, like every week on Wrestling Challenge and Wrestling Superstars to prove. So he's defending the title against low mid-card guys just to prove that he's a fighting champion. He beat Shawn Michaels at a pay-per-view. He beat Razor.
Hey, you got to get the dates in, Jess.
What?
Come on.
What?
You got to get the dates
He
in.
beat Razor Ramon at Royal Rumble 93 earlier in the year. So just when we started to finally get comfortable with Bret and, accept the fact that Vince just rushed the title on him at a house show for no odd reason in 92 of October, he gets the title taken away from him at WrestleMania from Yokozuna. And then Hulk comes in there and does the whole beating Yoko in like 20 seconds to win the title. And so all that happened. So now Hulk's back on the scene, barely wrestling, did a tour of Japan right before this pay-per-view, called the WWF Championship a toy, and I can win it whenever I want, which pissed a lot of people off in the company. So Hulk already, just coming back a little earlier in the year, is already on the outs, basically. So before this pay-per-view, they pretty much say, not out loud, but they were pretty much just like, Hulk, we're moving on. Hulk's going to finish up the pay-per-view. He's going to do a European tour right afterwards, and he's gone. Like, he's not re-signing. So it kind of, as big as the Hulk thing splashed when he came back for WrestleMania 9, it ended with the big thud here in June. Hulk Hogan being champion for 3 months and never defending the championship until this night, just because of the fact that he's Hulk Hogan and he can do what he wants. So a lot of people,
this is hindsight.
Yeah.
Let's be real about
a lot
that.
of people, especially wrestling experts, were really behind Bret because they're like, dude, you started to go with this new athletic superstar. You started to push him. You started to get away from the roid monsters and the 6'8" guys and the, whatever. And then all of a sudden Hulk comes back and he's like, give him what he wants. Like, so people were a little pissed at Vince. And of course the hardcore fans were a little pissed at him because they're like, you just get us finally used to an actual wrestler being your champion. And then all of a sudden you pull the rug out from under us. But this tournament was to start to repair Bret and keep him relevant and move the title from one person to the other. So that's just to give you a little bit of a background before this pay-per-view started.
Well, let's dig into a little more background, Jess. What's the venue here? Attendance, gate, etc.
There was only like 6,500 people here, but I mean, the Nutter Center is what it was called in Dayton, Ohio, was kind of a small-ish like arena anyway. It was more of like a convention center here. I don't know.
They
if
never
it was a
even
seller or
mentioned Dayton, Ohio. They in the beginning they say live from America's Heartland. They don't actually say Nutter Center or the name of the small town.
I thought
which
they
was
said
funny.
Nutter Center, but it was kind of blacked out by Ross at that moment.
Ross
Maybe
might have said Nutter Center in his commentary, like when he's talking about it, but yeah.
But it was the crowd. You hear the crowd noise over it. To your point, Craig.
And I have to say,
it was like almost intentional that it wasn't heard.
You know, I know a lot of people wasn't in the arena here, and it had to have been pretty close to a sellout. I just don't think it was a very.
But
big
it was
place.
still a hot crowd.
Yeah, it was a really hot crowd. So we jump in. I don't know if this is worth noting. So WWF used to do a lot of partnerships with the USWA here. It was that was Lawler's promotion. And in a dark match, Papa Shango, who was the reigning USWA heavyweight champion, defeated Owen Hart, defending his title in the dark match. A little interesting. Then we open up the pay-per-view, and Bret Hart and Razor Ramon open up the night. 10 minutes and 25 seconds. Bret Hart will pin Razor Ramon with a surprise cradle and advance to the second round. I give the match a thumbs up. I felt like the crowd was super live. This was Bret's coming out party. Is like, I'm gonna, you know what? If you're gonna fucking side with Hulk behind the scenes, I'm gonna work my ass off and I'm gonna get out here. Ramon was just about to turn face here. He had already lost to the 1-2-3 Kid on Monday Night Raw.
He's close.
Yeah. So people were chanting 1-2-3 at him or whatever, but Ramon was so good here. He and Bret, obviously, Bret really didn't have a bad match with many people.
Like he didn't overwhelmingly sell the 1-2-3 Kid. He would look at the crowd and go, oh, and shake his head quickly and like move on. Like I hear you, but like that's not the story. And he would do his best to shake it off and keep running. He was promoting his buddy. Come on, man.
Yeah.
They were friends. It's all good. Nothing wrong with X-Pac getting a little love.
But it was good.
Yeah, it was good. Razor kind of starts off slower in a deliberate sense. Bret's more on the uptake. Bret reverses the Razor's edge and gets a 2.5 out of it. And then he also counters a suplex off the top rope into a cradle, and that's where Bret wins. So you realize, like, you know, Bret's finisher when he singles is usually that sharpshooter situation. Never came up, which is kind of fun to me. They didn't really use a finisher necessarily in a lot of these matches. It was a tournament match. How are you going to win? And it was all about getting just a quick up and over on the next person without deliberately burying the other one. Because when Razor gets up, he's pissed. He's not hurt. He's like, you got me, you know, kind of situation, which I particularly like. That happens a lot. If you look at UFC now, when Ronda gets someone in an armbar back in the day, they would tap because, I'm tapping. It doesn't hurt yet, but if I don't tap, you're going to break my fucking arm. And then they get up and they're fine. You know, everybody's fine. So fine that actually Bret and Razor almost walk out together. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Razor's getting ready to get out of the ring, and Bret walks out, and then like they're right next to each other. And then Bret has to stop and put his head on the apron for a bit while Razor walks out. Even so, I do give it a thumbs up. I love the match. I love Bret and Razor working together. Great movement. Not really a period of dull moments. No stupid bear hugs, which we see our share of in this pay-per-view. I really enjoyed it. Thumbs up for me.
One of these men will be the winner. After taking a beating like this, you're going to come back and wrestle again. That takes a lot of conditioning, a lot of courage, a lot of guts.
To win this tournament, you got to wrestle. Oh, he countered it. He countered a suplex. Oh, he got it this time. What a
Yeah, it's same. Thumbs up. Great opener. Bret Hart's just the superstar of the night, really. And even before this match, I just want to note, I really missed Vince McMahon used to do all the openings to the pay-per-views or did. And his sell of the beginning with the music, it's like the old Vince McMahon. I really like how he used to build it up, but and he obviously doesn't do it and hadn't done it for years and years and years. But he was like the mouthpiece of an exciting kind of thing back then. So it was cool to see. But this match, thumbs up for sure.
If they can continuously use James Earl Jones as the voice of Vader, and you got to be sure that they've prepared even after he passes away, they're still going to be able to use his voice somehow. Vince McMahon can fucking still announce every pay-per-view, in my opinion, even here in 2020. It's just ridiculous that they don't do it, because it is. That beginning was awesome because it was just Vince just screaming, "Welcome everyone!" Like, and it's cool. Like, you know, it's like. It just makes you think,
like you said, Bushwhacker Luke in the Royal Rumble.
When you used to do all the Royal Rumble openings and the WrestleMania openings or whatever, it takes me back.
More.
But we're going to go to the second match of the quarterfinals. Mr. Perfect defeats Mr. Huge. Mr. Huge, he's pretty big. Mr. Hughes by disqualification. 6 minutes and 2 seconds. I give the match a thumbs down. Like, I think Mr. Perfect was trying his ass off to bump for Mr. Hughes. They didn't really gel together. And it was just really weird. You know, Mr. Perfect comes off this 3-match marathon with Doink just to qualify for this fucking thing. But yet, like, just it didn't look good with Mr. Hughes, and they wanted to protect Mr. Hughes, I guess, because he was supposed to kind of have a program with the Undertaker. Taker was in a program right now with Giant Gonzalez, who was also managed by Harvey Wippleman, and Mr. Hughes was part of his little
who wasn't
group.
even there.
Yeah, it wasn't even there, and it was just odd. And like, it's like they were trying to protect
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hughes for no reason. And I mean, I guess they wanted to make Mr. Perfect look really good before the tournament because they kind of knew Brett was going to go over in the tournament. But like, it just kind of was like, I don't know. I just thought it fell flat. And I thought Mr. Perfect was trying hard to bump, but Mr. Perfect, in my opinion, was never a good babyface. And his character is a cocky heel.
He was always better as a heel. I'll agree with that. But I'll also tell you that Mr. Perfect is the best bumper in the business. I'll even say it over.
Oh, he was
Shawn
trying.
Michaels,
He was bumping
but-
his ass off.
Yeah, he really was. And also, by the way, Hughes is moving fast for a big man. There was moments where I was like, man, this guy's he's coming off so hard with those ropes. Those ropes might fail. That damn cable might have come loose. And they were really trying to do work. There was a Hughes promo in the beginning that was kind of just way subpar. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if y'all noticed, but when Mr. Perfect walks into the ring, he literally throws the towel around his back at Mr. Hughes, and it hits Mr. Hughes square on the shoulder.
Yes, yeah.
I'm like, you can't plan.
He was
that,
pretty
you
gifted
know?
at shit like that. And batting his gum too. Perfect was always fucking great.
Yeah,
at
it was so good.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I thought was hilarious, because when Bobby the Brain, as smart as he's supposed to be, would be so stupid at times, they would do the brain scan. This was the first brain scan of the evening, and it was a fucking total epic fail. Trying to talk about Mr. Perfect's gum flying off, and it didn't work. Nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah, so,
Like,
so the,
what are you
the
doing,
brain
Bobby?
scan was like a telestrator, like John Madden used to do.
Yeah.
So it was like you draw on
Exactly. It
you were
just
drawing stuff on the screen, so it was called the brain scan.
There's Mr. Perfect, and there's the gum. Going. It's the brain scan, by the way, humanoid. Going. Foul ball.
Yeah, it was in my opinion, it was a total failure. And I thought, as Mr. Perfect grabs the tie and Mr. Hughes is in control, I'm like, is the tie legal? Can you grab the tie? Is that okay? Is that not choking Mr. Hughes? They even brought it up in the commentary like that. The Macho Man's like, that's a tough decision for the referee. Yeah. Like, like just so many weird things. Like, can you put the tie back? Can you get a clip on that? Like, nothing makes sense. And what's even more interesting is during the match is Brett gets an interview asking who he wants to wrestle next of the winner. And he said he would rather wrestle Mr. Perfect because he respects him and the endurance of the match. He would not prefer to wrestle Mr. Hughes, which kind of leads us into story later on. So at the end of it, like you said, Mr. Hughes can't hang with Mr. Perfect. He hits him with the urn. The ref sees it, and it's a DQ win for Mr. Perfect. I do give it a thumbs down, but I did enjoy the little things in between. I enjoy Mr. Perfect hitting him with the towel perfectly. I enjoy the interviews before. I enjoy Brett talking about Brett's trying to set the storyline for Perfect and Brett, during the pay-per-view, which is tough to do because when you do tournaments, how do you set storylines for people that you don't know who's going to wrestle yet? And they were doing that during matches, stuff that you don't really think about. But for the match itself, I give it a thumbs down. But for the pay-per-view, I give it a thumbs up because it kind of progresses, if that makes sense. I know it's weird.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll give the match a thumbs in the middle. I mean, I don't think I've ever liked a Mr. Huge match, to be honest. Props for wrestling in a full suit and tie and sunglasses that somehow don't fall off, and I don't understand why. But yeah, Perfect tried. And to Jess's point about never worked as a face, I think he could never take off that smirk, and it's tough to be a humble guy when you're known as being Mr. Perfect. He never lost that smarminess.
How are you a perfectly
was-
humble man, Greg?
But I think, and he wasn't even a good face. I remember him as champ of the AWA when I first started watching it on ESPN or something, and he was Larry Henning's like kid, but he wasn't dynamic. But as a wrestler and a bumper, and they tried. But yeah, thumbs in the middle.
So the next match we have is another King of the Ring quarterfinal match. Bam Bam Bigelow defeats Jim Duggan with a headbutt off the top rope. 4 minutes, 59 seconds. Total thumbs down. Duggan was terrible in this fucking match. Like, he's sloppy. He's sloppy anyway. He was awful. Like, when you weigh Bam Bam Bigelow down, you're terrible. And Duggan was way past his prime here. And I'm not suggesting that. I know Duggan's all character and everything, and listen to the crowd, all hoes everywhere, and like not actual hoes like women hoes, but all like saying ho, and he's Mr. USA and he's in the heartland of America, and I get it. And Duggan's always been like electric with the crowd. He really has. Like, when has he not been over?
They love it. What's interesting,
just a fucking sluggish, terrible match where Bigelow had to slow himself down. He had nothing to work with. The bear hug the bear hug put me to sleep. I felt like I was in a bear hug, and I was thanking God when he dropped the head, but at least he had a cool dynamic move to beat Duggan. He headbutted him, pinned him clean, which is what it should have been. I was totally bored. Thumbs down. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs in the middle.
Oh my God.
And honestly,
I don't even know you.
I'll tell you something right now. When I saw him coming down, I would instantly say thumbs down, because every time I saw Duggan, I'm like thumbs down. So that being said, the opening minutes of the match for me was like pleasantly surprising and good, fast pace, especially for two big men. And like I said before we got online, like Duggan takes Bam Bam and cleanly slams him, and Bam Bam doesn't jump at all. And I think I disrespected the strength of Duggan, like just the physical strength of what he was capable of doing. And I have to give some respect to the fact that Duggan is restricted by his character. And we know that Duggan's going to go out there most of the time, and he's going to put someone else over. That's his job. So based on those things, in my opinion, I'm gonna take that. And also the fact that Bam Bam missed a neck shave. If y'all didn't notice, he had hair all of his neck and not on his head. I'm going to give Duggan a little bit of a pass here. And I'm going to give him that thumbs in the middle, because he did do the great things to make it a competitive King of the Ring match and still put Bam Bam over in a competitive way to make him a viable finals match, which we'll talk about shortly.
Yeah, I'll give it a thumbs down. I was watching it back today and I could barely follow it or
fucking
want to
awful,
follow
Dave.
it. Duggan was so clowny and cartoony at this point. I mean, he was always done it, but
come on, man,
it's fine.
That's
At
a
least
Vince,
Bam Bam,
that's a Vince gimmick all the way.
at least Bam Bam won and then did a nice little headbutt off the top. It was fun.
He struck the top turnbuckle with his head. Duggan just moved the ring from the impact. Bigelow up on top. God, 400 pounds with that headbutt. He's got the leg hook. And Bigelow wins it. And will advance.
That's all Jim Hook Duggan is history. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner.
So the next match, it was the final match in the quarterfinals. It was I knew this match was coming, by the way, and kind of to Dave's point when he's like, if I saw on paper, Bigelow versus Duggan, I'm a thumbs down when they're coming down to the ring. But then like Lex Luger and Tatanka went to a 15-minute draw, and both were effectively eliminated. However, I knew it was coming, and I felt like it was like some kind of like monster coming for me that I had to watch it. And I was like, fucking, this match is going to be terrible. And I didn't hate it. And
It's not that bad.
it's not that bad. And it was a typical, you could tell they telegraphed it from the beginning. They were going to the draw with this many fucking chin locks that Luger was doing. But like, I actually felt like they both kind of worked pretty hard. And of all people, I would not guess would go to a passable 15-minute draw. I would not think it would be Luger and Tatanka. And they were decent. They were all right. I give it a thumbs in the middle because I didn't hate it. Like when it came up next, I was like, oh, this motherfucker. Like I knew right then, I knew they went to a draw. Obviously, we've seen this pay-per-view before, but like I knew they went to a draw. I'm like, this is going to fucking anger me this whole match. At least Duggan and Bigelow was, under 5 minutes or, 5 minutes. But I didn't hate it. So I'll give it thumbs in the middle. Luger, of all people, worked hard and tried to keep the pace. Tatanka worked hard too. A lot of sweat everywhere. But I give it thumbs in the middle. What do you say, Dave?
There was another brain scan failure here about the forearm. No one could make sense of it. But they did make a big deal about how if Luger didn't put the padding on, he would be automatically disqualified from the King of the Ring tournament. So he had to put on the forearm. For those of us that don't know what we're talking about, Luger legitly got into a motorcycle accident months before. And I think he was working in the WBF with the World Bodybuilding Federation. But he had plating on his forearm. And so they brought that into storyline, and he was knocking people out with his forearm. Correct? Right,
Yes.
guys? So he had to put padding on to face Tatanka. The refs made a call in the ring, and they said, if you don't want to, you can be disqualified from continuing. So he had to wear it. Anywho, didn't matter so much because at the end of the day, they did go to that 15-minute draw. And this is where I had a question for you guys, and I don't know if we're running over. I think we're doing good on time, but when you watch Luger the WCW days and you watch him here, I think he dramatically lost at least 30 to 40 pounds. This is all based. We all know this is the steroid scandal coming just out of fruition. A lot of people dropped weight here, including Hogan. You can see a big difference in weight and size. What say you here with Luger? Because he almost looks, he looks great, but he doesn't look great. His face looks like a normal face when he's sick here, when we see him 20, 30 years later on WWE documentaries. No?
Yeah, I think they all slimmed down after that era, and I have no complaints about how Luger looked. I thought he looked like $1 million, although cut in definition, and it was a shock to the bloated monster that you last saw him. But they gave him the narcissist gimmick for a reason. He looked great. I forgot about the narcissist when I watched it back, and he used to pose and bring a mirror in the ring, and Tatanka dumped it on him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But all that to say, thumbs in the middle also. Luger matches shouldn't go 15 minutes. But I watched it, and I smiled. I was watching it, and it was good to see kind of Luger. And Tatanka's always been a decent wrestler.
Another near fall.
There it is.
That's the time limit.
That's his own fault right there. I can't believe it.
What a battle. What a wrestling match. 15 minutes.
Listen,
Ladies and gentlemen, the time limit has expired, and the referee declares this bout a draw.
No.
And Tatanka was also Tatanka was in the middle of his undefeated streak here.
They both were. Both of them were undefeated here.
So the thing I have is like in the house show loops at this point, Tatanka was touring with Bigelow. And they would actually take it to the Royal Rumble 94 months later and fight each other on pay-per-view. So they were going around the horn with each other for like 8-9 months. Why in the fuck would they not just have Tatanka go over Luger by a cheap DQ or something so we could get a Bigelow and Tatanka match instead of,
I don't know either.
and it could have been 5-6 minutes or whatever. And obviously Bigelow would have had to have gone over, but maybe Bigelow could have gone over by count out or something. Or maybe, I don't think they wanted Tatanka to lose it all, maybe. So I think answer my own question. They wanted to keep him undefeated, but to me, I was like, I just thought it was always odd that they chose these two guys to go to a draw. But I get,
for some reason, both of them were so protected with that undefeated streak at that moment. That's the only answer.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's right. Like, have them wrestle somebody else.
Yeah.
They could have gotten to a ways and wrestled into a draw with somebody else. But one of the things I was going to bring up was we talked about Heenan and his overt comments. This is how Heenan is just I don't want to say out of touch. It's so long ago, but I don't want to say racist. He's dead. He can't defend himself. But he would go into the Tatanka rants and he would say, well, that's where Tatanka goes, hey, how were you?
Yeah, but that's all of them did it. Ventura did it.
They all did.
He called Tito Santana's flying forearm the flying jalapeno. It's not racist. That's ridiculous.
It was the flying burrito.
He called it the flying jalapeno as well. Like, that's not racist. I think you're actually being a little bit too aggressive in calling Heenan a racist. Like, I think that's actually way off base.
I'm trying to find a different term for it. He was definitely insensitive to
it. Not insensitive at all. It's insensitive by 2020 because people.
Which, by the way, I'm not even sure if Tatanka was really a Native American.
I don't think he was.
He is. The part. Is he?
Oh, no, you're right. Legit? He's like Navajo or something like that, right? Like, he has like a little.
Really?
Yeah, he has a little.
I think so.
A little bit in him.
Because if you told me he was Samoan, I would have just taken that and been like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah,
he was 280.
I don't think Bobby
He was a
Heenan's
big son of a
insensitive.
bitch.
It's just the way people talk back here. Like it's an over the top character, which is ridiculous anyway. Like when you look at the Tatanka character and Heenan being the total heel, I don't think there was any malice behind it or anything like that. If you look at it with 2020 eyes, yes. If you say hi to someone on the wrong tone nowadays, people are like, "What'd you mean by that?" So I just said hi. Yeah, but you said hi. Like, I mean, so whatever. Like it's
Hi. How
racist
are
is a
you?
completely wrong brush to try to paint Bobby Heenan with, in my opinion.
No, don't defend Bobby.
Why? He's the greatest manager of all time. Why not defend him?
I agree with that. There's no reason to defend him. I can't think that's kind of my point.
And calling him a racist, I was actually calling him the greatest of all time. Fucking racist.
I'm not. You could still be the greatest of all time managers and still be a racist. I mean,
Well,
maybe
technically
that's-
that might
maybe
be
that's part of the
true.
gimmick.
Technically that might be true, but that is not the case with Heenan. I could say that with utmost
he
confidence.
loved him in real non kayfabe. He loved everyone in that back. He's not a racist in real life. Let's put it that way. But he had to play the part on TV, and people were very insensitive to that. And you could probably blame Vince for that more than you could blame Bobby for that if you really wanted to cast blame. Sorry, I don't want to be too much of a dick about it, but it's out there. You look at it now, it's just it doesn't paint a pretty picture when you watch it today, right?
But
No.
it was every week back then, and
It
culturally,
was.
you never even thought twice about
Yeah.
it. And it's jarring to watch it back now with the Tatanka and even the whole Japanese elements with Yokozuna and that whole
Yeah.
thing.
My god!
But every week, Heenan was no
Yokozuna
different
was
than
not-
anyone
he
else
was
on the
not.
mic.
I'm not
really.
saying it's right. I'm just saying leave it in its time
Right.
capsule. Like it
Yeah.
belongs in the times capsule for a reason. So I mean,
Yeah.
at the time, yeah, if you try to look at it with 2020 eyes, it's like, what? Because that's what we're all talking about now. I mean,
Yeah,
You know.
it throws you off.
yeah, it's
Right.
different to listen to, and you're sure, like Craig said it right. It's jarring, but at the same time, it's like it belongs in the time capsule for a reason. Like it's not meant to be drawn into today's society and then judged, because I think that's not fair.
So what's interesting about it is it does go to the time limit draw. Both men remain undefeated. Bam Bam advances to the finals. But Luger tries to get 5 more minutes, and everyone's like, fuck you. So he uses the elbow on Tatanka
Fucker,
and fucks him up pretty good.
fucking asshole.
Because he's a heel. But hey, that brings us on to round 2.
Oh, and they start out round 2
Yeah.
with the bang. Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, 18 minutes and 56 seconds. Bret Hart goes
On the
over.
30-minute time limit, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I guess the second round did increase. It went up to 30 minutes. Or something like that.
It increased to 30 minutes. and they
So
took it to
I
18, yeah.
you know, first of all, thumbs up. I'm stupid if I say anything else.
I was going to
Oh
say,
my
I was like, where's he
God,
going?
come
Thumbs
on.
down?
Is
but,
that-
like,
where's this going?
It was so different. It was so different from their SummerSlam 91 match, which is also a classic. And that's just how good Perfect and Bret were. The bending of the fingers on Bret by Mr. Perfect. It was a completely unique storyline.
when he already got his fingers stomped in the first match.
Yeah. And so he sells that through the whole fucking pay-per-view. And just that little nuance is fantastic. And just
By the way, Bret taped his fingers up after the first match getting stomped, saying they had issues. That was totally fucking.
they were, and also
deliberate.
they were both faces coming into this, which was different. Henning was heel in SummerSlam 91 and Bret was face. And they,
They're both face.
yeah,
there.
they did walk the line well. And it's like, it goes back to what we say about Bret. It's like, you know, how many times have you seen him wrestle the same opponent and the first match be a classic, but then when you watch the second match, it's equally as good in a totally different way. The Bulldog comes to mind. Owen comes to mind.
But-
from the WrestleMania match to their SummerSlam cage match. He's that good. And I'm not shitting on Mr. Perfect. We all, what do you
Before
say?
you even get into the match, though, Jess, they had an interview with both of them together before the match even started.
That's right.
And Mean Gene literally picks a fight with them. Did y'all
Yes,
notice
yeah.
that?
Gene it's so funny when Gene wants to be an asshole and an instigator. It's hilarious to watch him because he's so
and
non-threatening.
then he's like, whoa, hold up.
And he blames
He picked
them.
the fight
He
and then he
blames
shut
them.
him down.
Yeah, he
I
starts
was
the fight and he's like,
oh
"You
my-
guys calm down." Like basically, it's like, "Well, you started it."
That was that's exactly what
Yeah.
happened. I loved it. I was
Yeah,
like,
it was basically connected to Dave said it earlier during the first round match. Bret
Yeah.
Hart's picture pops up and is asked, "Who would you rather face, Mr. Hughes or Mr. Perfect?" And so he says, "Well, qualities to both. Mr. Hughes, you'd have to have size. He has size and strength. With Perfect, you got to have endurance. Blah blah." And so Mean Gene Okerlund during their pre-match has them together for the interview and then goads them into kind of, you said you'd rather have Mr. Hughes. Why is that? You think you could take Mr. Hughes instead of Mr. Perfect? And it's basically kind of the Roddy Piper, Bret Hart promo from from later where it starts friendly, and there's actually he didn't pick anyone. He didn't pick he picked Perfect actually, and they try to make a wedge out of nothing, but it ends the promo with a little bit of a story which infuses into the match, which it was good. But 18 minutes flew by with these two. It was great.
Yes,
even infuses their dad.
It's so
too. My dad beat your dad.
Yeah, that was funny too. Like, no, he didn't. Yes, he did. Like, and it's just kind of, it's a tribute to both people. I didn't mean to overly praise Brett. I mean, obviously, Mr. Perfect, we know he can hang. He's amazing.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
This match is fucking great. And like I said, it's just as equally as good as their SummerSlam 91 match, but on a totally different level. They both wrestled on completely different levels. It was a lot more snug and a little bit vicious, with the finger bending and stuff, like Mr. Perfect taking advantage of that, which is kind of a heel tactic, but not really, because they were even saying in commentary, what would you do? You take advantage of the ailment. You're in a tournament. It's attrition, so it was just, everything was so good about this match. And, again, it's tribute to both guys, honestly. Like, it's people don't talk about this match ever, and they should.
It's countered. It's countered. And yeah! What a match! What a match!
He reversed it. Mr. Perfect cannot believe what just happened.
Well, no one talks about it because it's not a big finisher match. I mean, Brett wins on a reversal small package. There's really no real finishers here. You don't see a perfect plex. You don't see any of those items. But again, this was so great. What was so great about these kinds of matches, they would literally get caught, get pinned, and go, damn it, I lost. So it wasn't like someone was knocked out cold and it was legitimate, like, oh my God, this is a crazy winner. It was like, nah, Brett just got by. And then, you would be like, okay, Mr. Perfect didn't really lose any.
No,
kind of
and you're right, and
there.
I agree with you, which is why one of the very few things I will ding this pay-per-view, we're going to talk about later in the finals, why I fucking hate
no finishers.
I fucking hate what they did, because you build Brett up this whole time to not use his finisher, to use it in the finals. But I don't want to say any more, because that bullshit didn't happen. And so anyway, I'm getting upset. I'm jumping way ahead here. So we all like the match, as everybody should. Go back and watch it.
Thumbs up all the way.
Go back and watch it. It's
Craig.
Fantastic. The next
Thumbs
match
up for you
is
too, Craig?
Yeah.
the next match is just fucking all over the place, because backstage shit was going on. The aftermath of WrestleMania 9 was fresh in everybody's mind.
Is it not the coolest thing where Jimmy Hart is pushing his body up and down to make the jacket of Hogan look like it's like breathing up and down in the beginning of that Hulk Hogan interview?
Viciously hate Jimmy Hart as Hogan's manager, but anyway.
Well, you don't know that's Jimmy Hart till it pops up.
For
You
the love of
see
God,
that
Dave.
animated,
Jesus Christ.
picture of Hulk just
my
up
God.
and down, and then you're like, okay. And then once again, he's like, "This is where the power of Hulkamania lies," and he points to his hand.
Okay,
One thing
Yeah,
about
go
this
ahead,
promo
Craig,
real
sorry.
quick before.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jimmy Hart, conspiracy theory. Jimmy Hart in this promo before Hogan jumps says two sentences. He says he was born and raised in the USA. He has red, white, and blue running through his veins. And he says those backwards, but basically those two lines are the first lines in his American-made WCW theme tune.
yes.
Yeah,
Which is crazy. Hearing
Actually,
him, Jimmy.
That's a very good point, because there's no way that could be a coincidence, right? Like,
Yeah.
He's already building the music for the whole.
and
show
Hulk
going
didn't
to
go in until like a
WCW.
year later to WCW.
But he was thinking of the music the whole time.
Yeah, or
Well, maybe not,
yeah.
but like, did Jimmy Hart write American Made?
Yes, he did.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, he probably thought back to this
He's all, oh shit, baby.
interview. Remember I said that real cool thing
I
about
did that,
everybody?
I already wrote the song, baby.
Yeah, they were. You need to watch his
So,
promos over and over.
We'll get into this. Let's
Incredible
get into this
stuff.
match here. For fucking whatever odd reason, Hulk Hogan was wearing a blank bandana, which I don't get either. Fucking just weird shit.
And for no obvious reason, he was 30 pounds lighter.
Odd shit.
But
Well,
yeah.
we all know why that would happen, but I mean, like, just
I am joking.
no, you're not joking. It's dead serious. Actually, he fucking got off the roids and de-bloated himself.
Well, I
but-
said for no
yeah.
reason he was 30 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
We all know why he was 30
Right,
pounds
right.
lighter.
But so we'll get on to the match. Yokozuna defeats Hulk Hogan to win the WWF Championship in 13 minutes and 9 seconds. So let me just say, but there's so much shit I have to get into here. The match sucked. It was terrible. Thumbs down.
First thing is Ross makes this way more entertaining
Yes.
than it actually is.
I was actually going to touch on that too. The match quality is thumbs down. It's awful. It's a Hogan by the numbers, thing, and it was more importantly, it's
Yeah.
a Hogan almost 40 by the numbers match, which is even worse.
No.
First of all, like Jim Ross, the whole night, Jim Ross is fucking fantastic to me. Like he's
a genius.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And the fact that this was Jim Ross's last pay-per-view, Vince pulled him off because I can't stand your Southern draw. I don't like the way you refer to wrestlers as athletes. You keep referring to their high school shit and their college shit. It's awful. Like Vince why hire him and debuting at WrestleMania? Your first commentating, assignment is WrestleMania. And then you take him off like 3 months later. Fuck you, Vince. Like, honestly, Jim Ross was awesome at the top of his game here. Second pay-per-view into a company that he never worked for before, but just the way he sold Hogan and Yokozuna was just fucking top.
The research
top
together.
Fucking notch, top notch, and just
the importance of every match on this pay-per-view.
Yes.
He sold it.
He was backing up every story. And so not trying to push the network, not trying to push merchandise, not trying to push whatever, which is what Vince yells at people in the headset now about. He was trying to push the fucking product and the wrestlers and their characters and the hard work that they've put into it to make you believe a certain way about the certain character. Any hoozle. So going to the introduction, the pop that Hulk got here was fucking awesome. And
it was pretty phenomenal.
And everything was weird about it though at the same time. So Jimmy Hart's awkward because I never accepted him as Hulk's manager. The video screen, Hulk's graphic was not the Hulkamania graphic. It was block letters of Hulk Hogan, which is odd. Everything was odd, which is so fitting that he was leaving, that this would be his last pay-per-view and he knew he wasn't coming back. When he comes out to that massive pop, he mouths the words "so long" to everybody. Craig and I obsessed over this, like back in the day. We replayed it over and over and over again. And he in fact says "so long" when he walks out, because he knew that he was going away for a while, that at this point, it wasn't just a year retirement like it was the year prior. I'm leaving. Like, this is it. So as much as the Hulk 1993 comeback was supposed to be a success and it flopped equally as big, this was, as a fan, I remember this pop being huge and being like, fuck, like this, I kind of knew, like, he's not going to beat Yoko, right? Like, I just knew it going in. Like, this, everything was odd about this, from the blank bandana he wore, and I know that sounds so trivial and ridiculous, to the block letter, screen, to everything. It was just super odd and not in his favor.
It's phoned in, is what you're saying.
Yes. And just kind of like, yes, exactly. But you do get goosebumps watching his entrance here, and the way he just stands there and smiles and he says "so long," and like the way the place erupted. Like, he's a star, and he always had been a star, and him just getting in there, it was awesome. And it was a boring, fucking slow, by the numbers Hulk versus big guy.
Where do you put the match?
That thumbs down all the way. Like, it was awful.
Thumbs down.
Yeah, it was boring. There was a bear hug in there, I think, for 2 hours, even though the match was only 13 minutes. It was about 2 hours long. Like, it was.
Yeah. It's tough.
The big boots at the end were awful and fake and terrible looking, and like, just everything was bad about it. And I just except for the ending sequence was cool. Again, he finally gets Yoko down. Yoko kicks out of the leg drop legitly. He kicks out at 2, and that was awkward. And again, just the way Hulk got up and the way he acted when he dropped the leg, did you notice the way he went for the cover? He put his elbow down on Yoko's chest in an odd way. Everything was odd about this match. Everything. And like, it was all weird. And yeah. And then I'm probably stealing everyone's thunder, but at the end, before the camera exploded in his face, he taps Yoko on the back to let Yoko know that I'm happy. We're going into the finish right now. Everything was so fucking obvious. Like, and Craig and I, again, that we obsessed about.
You can play that card a little bit. I don't want to be too conspicuous. I mean, even Hacksaw double taps Bam Bam.
Please, Jesus, don't bring Hacksaw back into this. Don't do it.
To a reversal.
Don't, Dave.
In the corner.
You're stretching.
Like, you're playing that. It happens in every match. Jess, don't play the.
This was super obvious. Oh, come on! Like, Yoko was on his hands and knees, and Hulk walked up and tapped him like he was like, "Hey, brother, got your beer." Like, that's the way he tapped him. It wasn't even to try to hide it. He tapped him in the most obvious way possible.
You're such a Hogan lover. You also constrict him in every facet you can possibly think of. I mean, it was a big. Craig, moment.
Well, we'll give the match your rating. I don't want to cut your rating off, even though it's skewed because you brought Hacksaw into this shit somehow. But what's your rating?
Did Dave give his rating?
No, he didn't.
No, I thought you said Craig first. You take it, Craig. You tell me.
Yeah, thumbs down for me too. Despite Jim Ross's attempts to make it epic and Andre Hogan kind of level. It just wasn't. To Jess's point, it was strange. I mean, even if you know you're leaving, to whisper so long on the entrance could be a big fuck you. Wearing a red bandana instead of choosing to wear a WWF merchandise bandana,
Yeah.
also maybe a big fuck you. And then Yokozuna giving him the bonsai drop at the end of it too. Could have been fuck you, but I mean, also a way to kind of get him off TV.
Right.
But then also kicking out of the leg drop too. Like there were some weird things. And the ending with the photographer with the fire paper, which was then sold as a camera backfiring, was fucking dumb. He was either like or did they figure it out and tell what happened?
No,
the next day?
no, they
It was
didn't.
immediately
The
sold.
guy who was dressed up was actually Harvey Wimpleman, but it was
Right.
not meant for you to know it was Harvey Wimpleman ever. They just explained
Right.
it as Yokozuna hired that Japanese photographer to be there, and his camera exploded accidentally. So obviously they were alluding to the fact that Fuji and Yoko planted him. But I mean, it was just weird. It's just like, I don't know, right? Like, where's Fuji's cane? What about the salt in the eyes or whatever? Like, just take the loss that way. Hogan had to be like, and then I need a volcano to explode in my face because that's the only way I'm going to get beat. Just at this point, you're already going. Like, you're already going. Yeah. And like, all of it was weird. All of it was very odd, but it gives me the feels watching his entrance and all that stuff because that was cool. And like, it was just all odd. All his movements were odd in there. Dave's probably right. It's more of a phoned in kind of feel, but like, it's just it was all odd. It was just really weird. I don't know. What do you give it, Dave?
To win the title. That's what, here we go. Listen to this.
Yeah, it's a thumbs down, and it's not because of the fact that it was put in the middle of the pay-per-view, because I'm one of those guys. If you're gonna hold a King of the Ring tournament, the final should be the final of the King of the Ring tournament.
Correct.
It shouldn't be the title match. I'm totally about that. So it's not because
maybe
of
one of the
that.
only exceptions where we could say the world title match shouldn't go on last.
Yeah, it was let me put it this way. Was it in the right spot? No. Should it have been last? No. They almost got it right because the matches that come after was like, what the fuck is this match doing after the title match? Yeah. But we'll discuss that in a minute. But I still give it a thumbs down. I think Hogan's on his way out. Hogan would not lose clean to Yoko. That was very clear. So he had to pull his bullshit camera angle out, have Yoko pin him, and then have Yoko put him out of commission because in Hogan's mind, I'm never coming back. Really, at this moment, Hogan in his mind is not coming back. He's going to do movies before he gets a ton of money in WCW to come back on that side of it. Am I right? Am I wrong? It was 94, right? When all that shit went down.
Oh my God, what was that? His camera exploded.
What?
Right in Hogan's face. His camera exploded in Hogan's face. Yokozuna drops a leg on Hogan. Yokozuna, leg hook. Yokozuna.
We got a new champion. We got a new champion. What the hell happened?
Yeah, about a year later. So it was just all, Hulk knew he was leaving. It was a big fuck you to Vince. But honestly, the big fuck you was on Hogan. The joke was on him because like his return flopped. He didn't.
I mean, he did the summer tour overseas.
Yeah, which is fine. I think he like beat
right?
Yoko. Yeah, he rematched Yoko all over the world and would win by DQ.
Well, he would beat him by
Yeah, and
DQ
all
all,
that.
over, but Yoko was the champion.
Yeah, so it's just like it was just I don't know. It was Vince and Hulk, typical Vince and Hulk fighting with each other behind the scenes. Hulk doing stuff that kind of damaged people. And I'm not saying like, it's easy for me to look back. When I was a fan here, I was like pissed that he lost. But at the same time, like I can't shit on him because he was the biggest draw. And within like a 2-year span or a year and a half span, it all went away from because of the steroid trial, him going away for a while. It all changed. And then the wrestling appetite changed, the audience appetite. You know, they didn't want this shit anymore. And you got to a point where you have this live show called Monday Night Raw. So you heard the Raw crowd reaction. And like it all was changing. And I don't think Hulk was ready for it. I don't think he was ready. You know, how do you become ready when you're the most cartoony of cartoonies? Like, and then the wrestling audience is kind of trying to tell you, we don't really want that anymore. We just don't need that. The next match here is a obvious cool down match. It's a 8-man tag team match. The Smoking Guns and the Steiner Brothers against Money Incorporated and the Head Shrinkers. 6 minutes, 49 seconds. I believe one of the Smoking Guns pinned DiBiase, if I remember.
It's like a small package.
Small package, quick pin.
There's just
scuffle in the ring. I'll argue that this was a match that should have gone longer, but they went over on other matches and they had to kill it for time.
Yeah, I give it a thumbs. I give it a thumbs in the middle. You give it a thumbs down. I give it a thumbs in the middle just because I don't know. Like they tried.
Not their fault.
Yeah, they tried.
Not their fault.
They were in an odd position on the card.
I am not even sure, Jess, if every person got in the ring of those 8. I don't think they did. Some people just
probably
sat
not
up there on the apron.
Craig, what do you think?
I don't care about this match. Thumbs down. It was just a cluster with, I don't know.
I also don't care about the next match.
Yeah, the next match is Shawn Michaels defending his Intercontinental Championship against Crush. 11 minutes and 14 seconds. I know.
Why is this so long?
You have a lot of faith in Shawn Michaels, but again, look across the ring and be like, we should cut this motherfucker down by about 6 minutes. So yeah, like, and it was odd. Doink came down and fucking Crushes. I'm sorry, rest your soul, buddy. He was big and impressive looking, but he was fucking terrible in there sometimes. And the ending sequence where Michael super kicks him in the back and he takes that fake phony fucking face bumping in the turnbuckle because Doink was distracting him. I wanted to throw shit at my television. Like when I rewatched it, I was like, God, he's so fucking terrible. Again, he's a wrestling instructor. You do that. You hit this, you back bump. Like fucking ridiculous.
Think about this though. You got Michaels and Crush going 13 minutes. And the match before you had the Smoking Guns, pretty talented kids, by the way. They were kids here. And you had the Steiners versus Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers. The amount of talent in that ring at that moment, I would take that 13 minutes right there over this horseshit IC title.
And by the way, the promo before the match was Shawn Michaels trying to get a cut in on Hulk Hogan, by the way. And Karma's a bitch. God. Karma's a bitch because right afterwards, when he introduced Diesel, he's like, that which makes a big truck go. Diesel. Like, I'm like, okay, bitch. Like, you thought you were so slick in bagging on Hogan, and then the line you knew you had to deliver, which was to introduce a name, you fucking almost flubbed and pretty much.
I was going to reference that. It's a complete botch. It's almost kick your leg out of your leg level. You can see he gets lost in it. Oh,
it was almost like he was more concerned.
I hope the dinosaur comment about Hogan fucking served you well, you cocksucker. Even though he had a great career afterwards. Whatever, go fuck him. Fuck Shawn Michaels. I'm sorry. I'm very curious. Pissed off.
You're so mad. You're so
fucking hate him sometimes.
You're right.
In Albany, New York, when you recapture the Intercontinental title, this so-called bodyguard, this insurance policy, what's his name?
What's his name? His name's my insurance policy. That's what it is.
Oh, he's got to have a name. Does he talk?
Okay, no, I do the talking. You want to know what his name is?
Yeah,
I'll give you the info. His name is Diesel, as in diesel fuel, that which makes a Mack truck go. This is a Mack truck, and this man protects Shawn Michaels.
But I mean, he couldn't make Crush. He couldn't. I can see why they put it here. He's supposed to be able to elevate Crush and have a good match, and he bumped the heck out of himself. He let Crush military press him and throw him like forward first out, from inside the ring outside, where he like rubbed his head like on the rope and almost hung himself. Like he tried. He really tried.
But
it just wasn't good. Thumbs down.
Connor Crush, thumbs down.
Yeah, I give it thumbs down too. It was uneventful, especially the ending sequence. Like I said, with Crush's fake shit, like was terrible. Like I just would get so mad, like at him. His mullet was the best part.
Personally, at the time, I know some people find it fascinating. I wasn't a Doink fan, so when I saw Doink coming down to this, I'm like, oh, it just makes it even worse for me.
I was kind of, I mean,
2 thumbs down.
it was just odd. It was again all odd. Like, and then also too, like, it's an odd placement for the match. The crowd pretty much was dead after Hogan lost, because obviously at this point where the wrestling crowd, the wrestling audience in general was tired of Hulk, but this crowd was really pro Hulk.
Yeah.
And like that, it just took
for sure. And they were kind of beat up after Hulk lost. But Doink, at WrestleMania 9, Doink wrestles Crush, and then Doink wrestles Crush, and there's a second Doink that interferes and fucks with Crush altogether. Then both Doinks come down at this point at King of the Ring
to distract him
and interfere to distract him, and then he loses again. So that's why the Doink storyline is important. For those of you that don't know, go back and check out King of the Ring 93 and WrestleMania 9 if you want to put yourself through a fucking world of horror. And check that shit out. Go ahead, Craig.
I think we talked about it very briefly in the beginning of this, but to Jess's point about took the air out of the crowd about the Hogan, go back and watch this on the network for that Hogan fan that prided himself on looking like Hogan, kind of bald. He's in the front row, and what we used to do is play the back when Hogan got pinned, and you can see his soul leave his body. You can see he just dies inside and he's frozen for like 30 seconds. It's almost as bad
as that Undertaker fan.
And then we always noticed too, after they went away for the interviews and then they started the smoking gun match, the 8-man tag, he was gone from the front row. I don't think he ever returned the whole night. I think after Hulk lost, when his soul left his body, he just left the building and wandered aimlessly on the streets.
He went to the bar?
No, or just was wandering on the streets of Ohio, like just walking around, not knowing where he was and who he was. It was so bad.
He was a 220-pound Hogan all day. He looked just like him.
Just that quick aside, it's another little nugget, but it's so good. Go and watch that guy.
I'm telling you,
I hope that guy's doing okay.
I laugh my ass off. Like how is that guy not zoomed in on playbacks like the fan from the Undertaker loss and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? One guy's like totally shocked with his glasses and his white shirt going. I'm like, oh, it's the best. I still laugh every time I see it.
So go ahead, sorry.
No, when Undertaker loses that streak, I bathe in it. It's fucking phenomenal. I love everything.
So we're gonna get on to the main event here. Bret Hart defeats Bam Bam Bigelow in the tournament final to become the first ever pay-per-view King of the Ring champion.
How underrated is Bam Bam?
18 minutes and 11 seconds. And let me tell you, like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of the ending in a second, but these two are amazing together. I love the chemistry between Bam Bam and Bret. They were awesome. Bam Bam was stiff. Bret was selling it. He's selling the fingers from earlier, selling the hemorrhoids from wherever. Like he was doing everything he needed to do.
Hemorrhoids,
yeah, apparently. It was a lot of stress to be top of the company and then get screwed by Hulk.
Read the PWI, Craig.
So Bigelow was awesome here, and so was Bret. They were both great. Now, the match gets a thumbs up. The fucking ending sequence, it's like, God damn it. Like, Luna Vachon comes out, who had been siding with Bigelow, hits Bret in the back of on the outside of the ring, hits Bret on the back of the chair. Bret falls down. It would be different if they counted Bret out and then the officials come back going, dude, the first ever King of the Ring can't be decided by a fucking count out. Restart this shit. I would respect that. Instead, she hits Bret. Bret sells it on the floor for like 2 minutes. Bigelow takes his sweet time, goes out, picks Bret up, brings him back in the ring, slams him, sets him up for the headbutt, hits the headbutt, pins him fucking clean, and they still come out and reverse the decision and continue the match. What in the flying fuck are we watching here? Why in the world would you shit on all of the work that Bret did all night long? To Dave's point, he never used his finisher to win. It was all quick cradles doing this and that or whatever. In the finals, he puts Bigelow in the goddamn sharpshooter and makes him tap. How is it fucking so hard, like, to push Bret, which Vince always had this problem pushing Bret? Like, why the fuck is this so hard? I'm actually legitimately mad right now because I remember Luna sneaking up like a little shit and hitting Bret, and then me going like, it was 5 minutes from the chair strike to when he pinned him fair. What? Why is Bigelow not King of the Ring? Why? Like, why?
And Craig, she's not even hot, bro. Let's be real about it.
Luna, no. And the move before that was worse than the chair shot. Like when Bam Bam kind of scoops him up and slams him very hard on just the carpet, not the mat, but the carpet. From a good, 4 feet. Like,
so that big
that
slam,
him. Like that was enough.
that big slam followed by the chair shot. I get the point. They're fucking destroying his back. Then he lets Brett get counted out. Someone else runs out going, bullshit. You didn't see what happened. After he slammed Brett, like Luna came out and did this. Totally want to restart the match? Sounds good. Like, sounds good. Bigelow brings him back in, slams him. Either Brett moves from the headbutt or kicks out of the headbutt because you're pushing him as your next big guy. And then somehow he musters an uppercut. Bigelow misses something big.
Yeah.
Brett puts him in the sharpshooter with the hurt hand, with hemorrhoids, everything. Gets him to tap. What the fuck? So you do this to Brett, and then we're going to talk about the end, the post match after this, when Brett looks like even a bigger pussy. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, so I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. The match, though, the chemistry between the two is fantastic.
To your point, if you're going to have that kind of finish, and why wouldn't Hogan have the same respects? A photographer blinded him, right? Well, let's restart the match. They didn't restart that match where there's a title change involved.
Yeah. Where are the refs in the back when they fucking saw fire hit Hulk in the face? They didn't come out going, this is bullshit. They were like, no, that's fine. But I tell you,
point. Yeah. It just doesn't make
and
sense.
Bigelow,
was that a deliberate move? As Howard Finkel gets up there after Brett got pinned and then announces that if they reverse the decision, and then the refs wave that off and say restart it. So was that on purpose, or was that an error by Finkel? Like, why would you announce it as a full reversal?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. It might have been an error. Because I don't think
it doesn't benefit Brett to here. We're going to give it to you. No, we're not going to give it to you. We're going to restart. Like, that doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah,
I think reversing the decision to get the crowd going and go, wait a minute. No, we can't reverse it. We have to restart it. I think it's planned. I really do.
But it was Vince's blind, even back here, this was the big period of wrestling where he didn't know how to connect with his fans because wrestling was changing and it took him a couple years to get his shit together. It's same thing here. Like, this contrived booking, you already made him look good, Brett, by having him do what he did all night long. And again, to Dave's point, him never using his finisher to the end is key. And then you don't even let him win at the end with it. And then he gets pinned fair, basically, even though, yes, shit happened on the outside like 5 minutes earlier. It didn't matter. If she jumped in the ring, hit him on the back in the ring with the chair, and then as Brett fell from the chair, Bigelow's coming off the top rope for the headbutt. I could get you stuff. I could get that. I could even get behind that. But just the way it all happened, it's like you made Brett look like a pussy. You made him look like he sucked. And like, how?
Vicious slam.
And look at Bam Bam. He's not even breathing heavy. He knows he's got victory. There he is. Top rope. The king of the ring.
Bigelow up on top. And there's the headbutt. It's over. It's got to be over. One, two. It's over.
You could have had him lose there and then beat Bam Bam at the next pay-per-view and go into WrestleMania to win.
Not even that. I don't even think a good move would be Brett losing at all. You just don't have him like win like this, like, because it wasn't like I didn't feel.
I don't get
Was
the
it to
point.
protect Bigelow? Because Bigelow didn't really need protecting. I mean, it was Brett's kind of night, but if that was the thing, like Bigelow's only won once, and he'd give it like it's some excuse to not be pinned clean. That didn't work either. It was a bit just nonsensical. Let just Brett win it.
Yeah, it was just overbooking for no reason. And then we'll get to the.
You could even have Luna come in and interfere, have Bam Bam miss the headbutt, pull him into the sharpshooter. And take care of business.
Fine, absolutely fine. Did you give it? What'd you give the match, Dave?
I give the match a thumbs up. Like I do disagree with the finish because it's just too much work for so little payoff. Brett, it's obvious that Brett's trying to carry the Federation from this point going forward, and Yoko's going to be the heel that he's going to chase. That's the experiment. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I know about the Lawler situation of the 2 years of feud going forward, which we'll talk about.
And Luger.
Really, at the end of the day, it's all about Brett chasing the title.
Craig, what'd you think?
It was thumbs up, and then this led to he didn't have. I guess we started now with it. Did you give it a thumbs up, Jess? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, thumbs up.
I like the match a lot.
This went straight to the coronation ceremony. Brett got about 10 seconds before interrupted by Lawler and starts there, and then gets kind of beaten down and destroyed. I mean, Brett's now been in the ring 45 minutes and then takes a heck of an ass whooping from Jerry Lawler and the chair thrown on
he doesn't
him
get to use the sharpshooter all night long. And then when he should have used it in the main event, he doesn't. He doesn't even go over clean. He actually got beat clean. Then it's like the referees conspired together to make Brett to shove him down your throat, which is got to be a Vince call. And then Brett wins by a victory roll, not even a sharpshooter. And then so already it's like, you didn't even make Brett look strong. You made him look like he needed refs help to get the match reversed. And then Jerry Lawler, who basically didn't even wrestle at that point and was just more of like he hosted primetime wrestling with some other people and all that. Like he was a commentator, basically beats the shit out of Brett. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, everyone's up in an uproar about how Hulk screwed Brett or whatever. This is again, more evidence that Vince didn't have a plan for Brett after WrestleMania 9. He wanted to put the belt on Yoko. He created Lex Luger after that to be the next All-American guy to do slam Yoko and be the hero. And like, it's just, I know.
I'm telling you, man, Warrior fucked up a 2-year timeline. We all know.
I know that like at the time I didn't really care for Brett and I was more of a Hogan guy and all that stuff. But looking back, man, like, if Brett wasn't so goddamn talented in that ring, they really went out of their way just to shit on him and make, like, they really did. They really did.
Oh, Hartonic coming in.
What a pay-per-view.
The headman up on Bigelow's shoulders. Can he get him he got him in the victory roll. He's got the fleet hook. Bret Hart is the king of the ring. Bret Hart is the king of the ring.
I can't believe this.
I mean, no, agreed, Jess, but I hate to keep going back to it. And I feel bad for Brett, and I think he could have carried a lot more than he did. But we all said when they tried to go to a certain arena for WrestleMania 8?
No, 7.
Or was it 9? 7, I'm sorry. Well, 6 was Warrior and Hogan, right?
Yes.
And then at that point, we knew already that Warrior had lost to Slaughter via the whole, schmoz with Macho Man. So by that point, WrestleMania 7 was Slaughter versus Hogan. So you knew at WrestleMania 8 in your mind, based on the tickets and where they're trying to sell it, was going to be, it's Warrior and Hogan on the rematch. Correct?
That's what you would assume.
That's what you would assume. One Warrior could pony up, steroids, wanting too much money, whatever the issue was, it fucks up this entire timeline from 8 all the way to WrestleMania 10, where they have to fucking restructure the whole thing. So I hate the fact that Brett gets shit on the way he does, but I think Brett is really just thrown into this. And they don't know what to do, and they don't have faith in him because they haven't tested him, even though they have. The crowd loves him, even though it's in a tag realm with the Hart Foundation, Jim Neville and Neidhart. But there's a lot to be said there with why they didn't trust him at that point, which in hindsight is just absolutely stupid. Brett could have carried it. They just needed more time with him. But you can blame the Warrior just as much as you could blame the Brass for not handling Brett the way they could have.
Yeah, they had all the talent in the world. And I think this is also where Vince wanted to split his interest, where he was like, well, I'm going to kind of like have a 3-tier card. I'm going to have Brett on 1/4 of it or 1/3 of it. Then I'm going to have The Undertaker on another, and I can have Shawn or whoever else that he was pushing at the time, Yokozuna.
ABC cards,
yeah, I think he really thought that was it. Just kind of, I'll push like 4 different people instead of 1. That way, every part of my card will be important.
But he had less talent than he did like 2 years ago.
I don't even know if he had less talent. I think physically he had way more.
Well, less
just
less push
the loyalty from the audience and the character belief that people, and plus
he didn't build them up.
Those times were dying, like no matter what, like those times were dying. Brett was probably the best solution for that mid, and I can look back now and realize it for that mid, but he just never had the belief in him, and he never did, even though he's like, well, but Brett should be thankful for everything I gave him. I gave him, a high mid-card profile Intercontinental Championship run for a couple years, and then he had the world title. Whoever thought he'd win the world title, which is true, but like, yeah, it's like he was always searching. Yeah, Brett, no problem. I trust you. I'm going to go with you. Well, wait, we're going to turn Lex heel or Lex face and have him go. Yeah, Brett, you go ahead and just keep feuding with Jerry Lawler and be in the middle of the card. And Lex is my guy. And then after that failed, it was like, well, let's put him with Undertaker. Okay, Yoko and Undertaker. I don't want Undertaker to win the title. And then they finally did trust Brett like a year later, but it took a full year of them just kind of like fucking Brett over, like on purpose, like almost even after Hulk left, they were just sort of like, we'll get to you. We'll get to you. Like it made no sense to me. It was weird. But overall,
I agree.
overall, what did you guys think of watching this back? I know you guys were saying you haven't watched it in a long time before we hit record.
Pleasantly surprised for a King of the Ring back in '93. Maybe for different reasons. I was pleasantly surprised by Hacksaw. I thought he did more than I thought he would do.
Jesus,
because I thought he would go in there and just take a big giant dump in the ring. So anything beyond that,
I never thought Dave's two big takeaways.
He's slam bam bam, son of a bitch. But even beyond that,
I never thought Dave's two big takeaways from watching King of the Ring '93 would be, man, Hacksaw's an impressive motherfucker, isn't he? And Bobby Heenan's a real fucking racist. Like, I never thought that would be Dave's two takes from King of the Ring '93.
Those are my big ones.
So he definitely threw me a curveball.
Definitely, like Bret Hart carries, I would say, half of this card, and I don't think anybody gives him credit for that kind of ability. We didn't then, we barely do now. And God bless Bret the Hitman Hart.
So what do you give the pay-per-view? The pay-per-view overall, what's your thumb rating?
Thumbs up overall.
Craigie Poo?
Yeah, thumbs up. I mean, for 1993, a completely different time and era, and the era of chain wrestling and wear down holds, and there's no fancy pyro or lights. It's pretty basic pared down product. It was fun. Good wrestling. They worked very hard.
Dude, the padding would come off the bottom of the concrete. The posts were real steel posts. It didn't have it all covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was paint being scraped off the post, Craig.
They took it was a painful time. There's a lot that's changed between 93 and 2020 in protecting each other. And that.
Holy smokes. Yeah.
Brett's at his best and carries this kind of pay-per-view. And even to Jess's point about not like coming off WrestleMania 9 and to see him having to wave in Hulk Hogan at the end of after leading to Yokozuna like he's a damsel in distress, and then coming off this, he can't even take it home or have his moment. The way he won and then getting just beaten down with Jerry, although it did lead to Jerry, it's tough for him. It's very strange, but fun pay-per-view, good wrestling. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
For all the booking like stuff that I will nitpick or whatever, and the Hogan debacle and just the way it was a mess backstage and everything, and even the ending to Bigelow and Brett, I gave it an overwhelming thumbs up. I mean, like Jim Ross, like fuck me, man. Like he was such a Monsoon was getting old, Ventura was long gone, and Heenan was funny on the mic, but they needed to freshen it up. And Jim Ross, like I just don't understand the whole problem with Jim after this, because Vince is just weird like that. But I mean, like, yeah, hearing Ross at Mania 9 and this, like, man, like it was such a breath of fresh air to hear him talk about WWF wrestlers like athletes, which I think is what we wanted. And it would help. It accentuated the Bret character or the Shawn Michaels
from
character.
The University of Michigan.
Yeah, or just Bret Hart like fighting and him accentuating that and talking about Mr. Perfect as an athlete and everything. Like it's what WWF needed to kind of transition themselves, but Vince just didn't see the transition at this point. He didn't until he was getting his dick knocked in the dirt, to steal a phrase from Dave, when WCW was beating the shit out of them, 2.5, 3 years later. And then he finally woke up and he's like, all right, fuck, I got to kind of give the audience what they want a little bit. And I got to also change my shit. But back here, he was just still like, nope, like you have too much of a Southern draw, Jim Ross. You're a fucker. I don't like you. Like, it's just weird. Like, it's all weird. But Jim sounded like $1,000,000. Like, Macho Man's always grated my nerves on commentating. It's like nails on a chalkboard. But Jim somehow made him. Good. It's fucking awful. And like just like fucking shut up. Like it should have just been.
There was points where Macho made good points.
He did, but he's just like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I've never liked a 3-man booth anyway. Jim Ross and Heenan would have been so much more solid. It's just a duo. But I mean, like again, I give it a thumbs up. It was a pleasant surprise. I loved watching it. Some gems in there. Mr. Perfect versus Brett. Brett versus Razor Ramon. The work of Bigelow, the work of the match of Bigelow and Brett, it was the Bret Hart night for sure. And like that alone, go and watch. The odd shit that happened with Hulk and Yoko and the way Hulk acted is just interesting to watch, knowing the drama and the politics that were going on in the back. And like we talked about the overlying black cloud of the steroid trial and the change of wrestling. I think I might have said it best earlier, not to pat myself on the back, but it belongs in the time capsule, but at the same time, it belongs in the time capsule because it does totally define this odd flux time in pro wrestling, especially WWF.
Gregor's your thoughts?
Oh, I gave him. I loved it.
Absolutely loved it. There you go. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Click on Linktree. You can find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. That was fun. Hit us up again at O.W.P. This is Dave, Jess, and Craig signing off. Have a good one.